who is our treasurer. We also have Melissa Hopkins, who is our Vice President of Sector Advancement, and we could not do a meeting without her. So, and we have Sheila Bravo, who is, I'm going to say, our CEO extraordinaire. Sheila is just a rock star. She really is, and does many, many, many good things in leading the wonderful team and staff that we have at Dana. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I think Guillermina is up first.
Thank you, Faye, and I agree with you. Sheila is a rock star, but you are too. So we
thank you.
We have a very solid team, and with that, my presence is going to be very, very short and sweet, because the votes that you guys gave, and thanks for your support and responding to the emails. The votes confirmed that the election of the slate of candidates have been approved. So we are welcoming at this point the new elected Board of Directors members, Doris Griffith, Emily Leach, Robert McCreary, Charles Mangeroni, and Jerry Penrose. But for the second term, and Lisa Lucchese has been elected again for the Board of Directors. With that being said, welcome everybody. Thanks for your service and looking forward to working with each one of you and the current board members. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Guillermina, for that. And I want to extend a hearty thank you to all of the new elected board members for saying yes and coming on board and going through our vetting process. We are looking forward to working with you. We talk about time, talent, and treasure, and we're looking for you to bring some and all of that to the board. And as you get more indoctrinated into the board, you will find that we're a pretty robust group, okay? So, and I love that. I really do. I love that about our board. So thank you very much. And also for second term elected board of directors, Lisa, thank you very much for serving a second term for us. Okay. And then we do have some board members who will be departing. And I'm going to say that they have been invaluable to our board. And to the sector, because they come with great expertise. So some of our departing board members, or our departing board members, are Patty Grimes. And Patty Grimes has served on the board for 6 years. Patty Grimes is one of the people that I will say is very inquisitive, has a very laid back style about her, but always asks some very good questions. And so she is going to be missed terribly. Patty served on the Alliance Engagement Committee, the Executive Committee, and as Vice Chair of the board. And as I said, her perspective was always with some curiosity, always with some questions that led to another question. But she's one of the rock stars in the nonprofit arena herself. And she has been a wonderful philanthropic partner. And again, always asking questions about capacity and impact, just to make sure she keeps us strategically sound. So we thank you, Patty, for all of your hard work and effort. To Vita Pickeram, who is also leaving our board, and she served on the Alliance Engagement Committee as well. And Vito has also been so gracious over the years in hosting Dana board meetings and Dana retreats right there at Delaware State. So we do thank you so much for your service, Vita. And then what can I say? Joanne Riley, I have to say Joanne is just one of the most refreshing people that I know. And that's on the board, off the board. Joanne is one of those people who is just an absolute constant, and you can always count on her to ask a question kind of in a straightforward, down to earth manner that just absolutely causes everybody to think like, okay, Joanne is absolutely wonderful. And she served on the Governance and Finance Committee. And again, Joanne has always contributed to lively discussions at our board and has led many of them. And so I thank you, Joanne, and you're absolutely wonderful. And then the next person is Mary Ann Van Veen, and she served for 3 years. And I just want to say that Joanne and Vita both have served for 6 years. I just don't want to lose that, because not only did they say yes, but they said yes twice. Okay. So anyway, but Mary Ann Van Veen has served for 3 years, and Mary Ann served as a on the finance committee and the audit committee, and her expertise in finance contributed greatly to where we are today. And you're going to hear about our independent audit, particularly as we explored new initiatives and the implications that it would have to Dana's financial health, which we always have to make sure that we have that nailed down. So I just want to say thank you to all of those outgoing members, and you will surely be missed. However, I have your phone number. So guess what? Anyway, thank you so much, everyone. We really do appreciate your service. Okay. And I think that is it for me, and we will be moving on to our next slide.
Oh, if I
Okay.
may, I would like to give a shout out first to our board of directors. We featured those who are stepping off the board, but we have many wonderful and talented board directors. And
Yes.
I just personally want to say thank you for their leadership and their support of the Dana staff and myself as we've been continuing to navigate what seems to always be a changing and dynamic world. And I've really valued and appreciated the questions and the guidance that the Dana board has brought, especially in these past few years where we've had to make some tough decisions at times, or big decisions, and where we didn't always all agree, but we had really constructive conversations that I think brought us to really good places. So I want to thank all of our board members, those who are leaving the board, but also I'm excited that some of you are still staying on the board. So we'll continue those conversations. And then I also want to recognize the Dana team. They are incredible. They work really hard, and they work very hard for our members and for our community. And quite frankly, Dana wouldn't be what it is without these amazing people. So I want to personally thank them all. Some of them are new. Jen Cooper and Alex joined Dana just recently this year. You have Earl, Cecil, and Nicole Peters, who joined the team last year. Leslie Poland and Daniel Davis joined us the year before. And then you have us long timers. And you notice I didn't mention Jalicia, or we know her as JL. JL has been on the team since, 2020. She started as a UD fellow and then joined the team in 2022 as a team member. We have got Tony Ferlenda, who joined us in 2019. And then Mel also joined us in 2019. And then Melissa Hopkins, she's been doing some amazing work for the sector, and you're going to hear a little bit more about those efforts shortly. And so I just again want to thank the team and all that you bring to the table. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Vicki. And Vicki, would you like to share a little bit about our financial performance?
I would love to. Thank you, Sheila. So 2022 was a pivotal year in many ways for Dana, coming out of the pandemic where we fared fairly well. As you'll see here from the numbers, this is very high level, and these, three kind of areas, colored shaded areas, really don't reflect the sweat and tears that goes into all the efforts behind this to make Dana a great organization to serve the sector. So just know that behind all these numbers is a lot of hours, a lot of passion, and a lot of work on your behalf. So our assets at the end of 2022 were roughly 640,000. So we're well positioned to go into 2023. The revenue that came in 2022 was just over $1 million. And you can see the breakdown there between the sources of those revenues. Looking at the expenses, you'll note that the program expenses obviously is by far and away our largest group of effort. And when you see the revenue that comes in for those programs, you can see that there's a lot of support for the sector that comes in from other sources other than just revenue for the workshops. There's a lot of underwriters, a lot of support from the community, a lot of support from some of our corporate partners. And that's so important, and we depend on that. And it takes a village. So we're very pleased to have a network that's strong and that supports what the nonprofits in Delaware are doing. One of the things, if you do the numbers and add them up quickly in your head, you'll see that the revenues were short of the expenses this year. Dana is on this kind of odd cycle, and maybe some of you are too, where we get a sizable grant every other year in the odd years. So that money comes in and it's recognized as revenue per accounting standards. And then the expenses for half of it follow in the even year. So what it looks like, if you remember from last year, our revenue was from 2021 was quite significantly greater than the expenses. So this is by design. We budget it. We know what's coming. We are good stewards of those funds until they're needed. We have them spread across various financial institutions to make sure that we are mitigating risk to the extent possible. I will mention as well that we completed another audit with a clean opinion. I believe we got our financial statements finalized in late May or early June. So again, kudos to the team. We have several team members who are working diligently to make sure that the funds are appropriately spent, that controls are in place, and that the record keeping is maintained and is current and is accurate. I do the review of the bank recs, so I know they're happening and I know when they happen. So, the board members are cheap labor, and I'm happy to do that. If you have any questions on this, please feel free to put them in the chat. It's at the bottom, I believe, of the screen. There's a little chat bubble, and we'll be responsive to those questions throughout, and they can be directed to me or to someone else on the team. We'd love to hear from you, especially if, let me know you're awake, and just really good things to share. And there's going to be more coming up. So I'm really excited for you all to hear what the numbers and what the endeavors are going to look like in 23 and beyond. I'll turn it back to Sheila.
Thank you, Vicki. You mentioned board members being cheap labor. I would reframe it as board members are invaluable. What's that word? They're priceless.
There you go. Thank you.
So I'm going to move on to, though it's always important and critical that we monitor our financial health, but we also need to make sure that we're paying attention to our mission and what is the impact that we're providing. And so I just wanted to give a quick highlight on a couple of our impact numbers. We do have an annual report that is on the Dana website, and you can also find on our website R990 so that you can look into more of those details, as Vicki mentioned. I just wanted to, for this meeting, just give a quick kind of overview for 2022. First of all, we saw some tremendous growth in our membership. We're very thankful for your confidence in us. So we had great membership renewal, but also a lot of new organizations joined Dana in 2022. And that ranged from all different parts of the state, but also all different sizes of organizations. And this just gives you a kind of a breakout of the mix of our membership by their operating budgets. And to give some perspective, you know, we tend to say that roughly about 75% of the overall Delaware sector is under $1 million in operating revenue. And we're kind of close to that in our membership mix as well. So we're really thrilled to see the renewals that we have, because we think that that's kind of an indicator that there's value in what Dana is providing to the sector. But we're also always welcoming new members. And if you see there, we have membership categories that include emerging nonprofits, so we can help them as they're forming, but also our associate members who are small businesses, professional services firms that provide support to nonprofits here in the state. And of course, we're thrilled always to have individual members, and we do some trade memberships with certain other organizations. For example, Philanthropy Delaware is a member of Dana, and Dana is a member of Philanthropy Delaware. A couple of initiatives that I just wanted to highlight. I mentioned how busy the Dana team has been, and so I just wanted to give kind of a quick snapshot, because we recognize that not everyone sees all the different types of activities that Dana is involved with over the course of a year. So in early 2022, we relaunched Share Delaware. We're using the Policy Map platform, so it's a much more robust mapping and provides a lot more indicators that can be used to look at Delaware sector. We also launched a new Dana website. Leslie Poland was leading that initiative, and excited to see. We're always looking for new images. So as a member, if you want to share with us a high resolution picture of your mission in action, I know that Leslie would love to have it, because we'd love to continue to update our pictures. We also, as part of the website, introduced on-demand learning. We have a partnership with MindEdge. So if you have a staff member who's interested in getting a certification, or someone who might want to brush up on their skills, for example, in QuickBooks, we have those training opportunities available now on a schedule that works for you. Last year, we talked about how important it is for us to continue to support our members as they explore how they can become more diverse, equitable, and inclusive cultures. And so we continued that work in 22. We published a research study that really profiled the diversity profile of nonprofit boards and leaders here in the state compared to 2014 when we did it previously, and to national levels. We, thanks to our funding partners, particularly Barclays Bank and Discover Bank, we were able to provide some free programming on a variety of different topics, as well as providing board assessments, so that organizations could understand kind of how they stand up as far as practices and policies around diversity, equity, inclusion. And our program in Wilmington, in partnership with Board Lead, we saw 14 diverse individuals who were placed on Delaware nonprofit boards this year. In 2022, we also brought back programs that were on hiatus during the pandemic. We held our annual Impact Conference, which was an experiment in of itself, in that we held it as a hybrid conference, located, I think, in 7 or 8 locations. So the team did an amazing job kind of reimagining conference in a time when we were still dealing with Omicron variants and things like that. And we also brought back our Dana Board Chair and CEO Leadership Series, which, just a small plug, will be coming up in 2023 in September. So if you're interested to learn about that program, please don't hesitate to give me a quick email, and I'll be happy to share more about that. In addition, we are really thrilled that throughout all this, we were also working on our accreditation renewal. And I'm pleased to say that the Standards for Excellence Institute did reaccredit Dana for another 5 years. So rest assured that we are continuing not only to work on enhancing how we support our membership, but also so that we can continue to improve ourselves. So with that, just a quick couple of snapshots that you'll see in our annual report. One thing that Vicki mentioned that I think is really important to remember is that we do offer our training and workshop services at a discounted rate. And that is offset thanks to grant funding, as well as sometimes we get sponsorships to support that. So in 2022, in our consulting services alone, there was over $100,000 of funding support to provide free access for our nonprofit members. And we also continue to see strong engagement in our different learning opportunities, which includes our communities of practice, conference, workshops, webinars, and then we do some kind of invitation where we'll go and speak to small groups about board training, usually board governance. So we're really pleased to see that continued strength and interest compared to kind of what I call the pre-pandemic levels. Every other year, in the even years, we do field a membership survey. This is a way for us to better understand how we're doing with our membership. So this was fielded in September of 2022, and we continue to receive positive feedback around the resources that we provide, the connections we offer, and glad to see that we're continuing to see strength in satisfaction with membership overall, but also with the workshops and training. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some upcoming opportunities, some new things in that come from, quite frankly, the membership survey. We do ask folks about some new ideas we're hearing, ideas we have, and we get that feedback and use that to help shape our plans for the future. Our programs would not be possible if we didn't have amazing partners. And these are our partners in programs, in that we are co-developing with them initiatives that we present to our membership. In some cases, like Cause Strategy Partners, that is the Wilmington area board connections program, which we'll be hearing a little bit more about in a couple of minutes. We do fundraising fellowships that Sundell Foundation and Longwood Foundation have partnered with us. The Delaware Community Foundation, Philanthropy Delaware, the United Way have continued to be partners in program, not only beyond COVID support, but also through Share Delaware, through our public policy, and the United Way worked with us on some diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. And as you know, many of you who have participated in our workshops or have taken advantage of our consultants, we have an amazing set of consultant partners who work with us and with our members to help advance the sector. And many of them have been with us for years, but we also have some new folks that have been joining. So we are continuing to expand our consultant pool so that we can meet the various and diverse needs of our membership. And with membership, one of the things that we are always wanting to hear is just how are we doing? How are we making things possible for our members? And I really want to thank Connecting Generations, La Esperanza, and Modern Maturity, who offered to tell their story about their mission, but also how Dana has been able to help support their mission to advance. And so if you'd like to hear their testimonials, they're pretty powerful. You can visit our website and see our annual report videos that provide their perspective and thoughts about how Dana has helped them, but also they offer some ideas on how they might be able to help you. And you saw, again, Vicki mentioned our contributions, and I talked about how our programming is underwritten. We are so thrilled to have the partnerships that we do. And again, many of these partners have been with us for over a decade, and we're really grateful for their support. And their support goes beyond just providing funding. They are partners also in thinking about how we can improve the sector collectively. And so we see our alliance partners as thought leaders in the sector, and we're really grateful for their contribution and their perspective because they bring different views and lens that helps us to be responsive to the needs of our membership. So with that, Melissa Hopkins, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about some of the amazing public policy activities that were going on this year.
Great, thank you for the opportunity. So this won't come as a surprise to many of you, as you were all participatory in our public policy initiatives. But Julia, if you would mind terribly moving to the next slide.
Sure.
We could just talk about where we started. Our goals for this year, based on the feedback we received in the member survey, understanding where the policy agenda for the nonprofit sector has been left in years past, the big buckets where we could really see change was around 3 areas. One is that many nonprofits are contracted service providers with the state, and the rates for those services have not been reassessed in many cases in upwards of a decade or more. So while for-profit providers have built-in cost of living increases built into their contractual relationships with the state, we were finding that in many agencies that this was not the case for nonprofits. We also wanted to see a more significant investment in the state's nonprofit sector through an increase to grant and aid. While grant and aid is one portion of money that is directed to nonprofits, it is a significant investment to our nonprofit sector here in Delaware. And then finally, as a means to really help nonprofits from an operational perspective, we pursued different alternatives to healthcare access for the nonprofit sector. One of which was we had hoped that we could create the opportunity for nonprofits to purchase healthcare through the state's benefit system. So that was where we started the year. So Sheila, if you wouldn't mind moving forward. So our 2024 grant and aid and bond bill had some investments into the nonprofit sector. Actually, if you could just continue. There we go. Thank you. So just a quick review of where that landed. As many of you know, the legislative session, our legislature is a part-time legislature. They come in January, they work throughout the 6-month period, and then they end their legislative session at the end of June. So by June 30th, we will see 4 money bills come out, of which all 4 have a little bit of money in them for nonprofits, but this year the grant and aid and the bond bill were where major investments were made for the nonprofit sector. So just as an overview, the grant and aid bill, which dedicates funds to municipalities, to fire departments, senior centers, and then nonprofit organizations that serve the community. This is an application process that organizations will go through to pursue grant and aid. We did see a $2.6 million increase over last year's grant and aid bill, which in total was $72 million. Nonprofits across the board saw between a 3% and a 22% increase. And while I understand that's a very wide range, was really dependent on the organization and the area in which they provided services. So we did see a larger investment into senior centers, where some organizations in the health and social services sector really only saw a smaller 3% increase. We did see some sizable one-time investments into, to the tune of $8 million in a variety of different items. Most were around municipal funding projects and state projects, where the grant and aid bill is where they put the money because that was the financial bill that was still available. But we did see 2 major investments in Kinda Kids and the Smyrna Clayton Heritage Association. So congrats to those members of Dana for those investments. And then first responders, they did see significant increases through the grant and aid bill. Of note is that fire departments, volunteer fire departments, are funded through the grant and aid bill, and they received, in addition to a 3% increase, they saw a $50,000 per volunteer fire company investment. So that is our grant and aid bill as an overview. The bond bill, what is really unique about the bond bill is this is capital infrastructure. So think, bricks and mortar typically. is the investment category for bond. And they do have a subsection within that bill called the Community Reinvestment Fund. And organizations can apply for funding. These are nonprofit organizations, and it's typically related to a capital investment. So everything from we need additional laptop computers for a community center to we need a paved driveway for X. But to view the complete list of awards to nonprofits that in total was $45 million, you can certainly go on the legislative website, and under the bond committee, they have and it is linked here. So these were a number of nonprofit projects. It is important to note that it was a $90 million investment last year. And what happens is this is one of the last things that they allocate. So it's just based on the dollars that the state has left. And so they did put $45 million towards this investment. If you could move forward, Sheila. So if you could hit the button again. So as we noted in terms of our healthcare access being one of our major priorities, we did have some movement on healthcare access, and it really followed two pathways. The first is around our desire to have state health insurance be an available opportunity to nonprofit organizations that have a financial relationship with the state. So a grant aid recipient up to a certain threshold, a contracted service provider. And we made the argument that these are an extension of state services. So where we landed on this is that we are still in negotiations with the Department of Human Resources in order to understand what are the requirements that they need to meet and from a cost-effective means. And so we really want that to be an available opportunity to members that meet the requirements. We did have epilogue language placed in the grant aid bill that it was enabling language. So what that means is that if we can come to an agreement on what that program would look like for nonprofits to access it, we don't have to wait until January for the legislature to vote on a bill to make it so. We already have enabling language that's been established if we can come to an agreement with the Department of Human Resources. And then the second opportunity, as we noted, the state health insurance opportunity is not completely fleshed out yet. We have not come to an agreement with the state. We're going to continue to pursue that. But it really only was for organizations that had a financial or contractual relationship with the state. The other opportunity is that in Delaware, you can, through the Insurance Commissioner's Office, request the opportunity to create an association healthcare plan. There is an initial, there are initial funds that are necessary in order to make that possible. And there are some regulatory requirements that you have to meet. So Dana has been working through this process with the State Insurance Commissioner's Office, and they've been wonderful partners and really walking us through the process so that we know that we meet the initial requirements. And we were able to secure a commitment from the state through their ARPA dollars to pay the upfront one-time cost to establish the program. So we'll be pursuing that in the next couple of months so that we can offer a healthcare opportunity through Dana to our membership in 2024. So we recognize that will take some time for organizations to phase out, to really establish if this is an affordable opportunity for them, if it's the best fit for their organization. But both of these options are to create opportunities for nonprofits to have more options for healthcare. Because it is one of the biggest cost drivers for organizations that are members of Dana. So if you have questions relating to this, please do feel free to put those in the chat box. If you wouldn't mind moving forward. So from a federal policy update, I always do think it's important for us to know, it's easy to get caught up in being in Delaware and just seeing, our tiny little ecosystem. But at the bigger level, lots of things are happening for nonprofits at the federal level. And we work in partnership with the National Council of Nonprofits to advocate for policy at the federal level that benefits the nonprofits here in Delaware. The first that I wanted to bring to your attention is the Charitable Act, which really addresses the deduction that was the charitable giving deduction that was lost through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 when the standard deduction was increased. Then it was brought back with a sunset, so it ended at the end of 2021, and the federal government brought that back to help nonprofit organizations raise money in the midst of COVID. So what we're asking is to bring back that non-itemizer deduction up to 1/3 of the standard deduction. So this would give the opportunity for people to now continue to collect their receipts as they had prior to 2017 and then deduct those charitable contributions. So we think that that would show an increase in charitable contributions to the nonprofit sector. The second is the Nonprofit Mileage Act, which really seeks to address the charitable mileage relief for volunteers. Fun fact, not really that fun, but volunteers right now, their mileage reimbursement rate is 14 cents, which is obviously complicated because we saw during COVID nonprofits losing volunteers. And in a situation where they're in a food delivery or driving folks to a doctor's appointment, they are using fuel to do that. And the reimbursement rate right now is at 14 cents when really the business rate for that is 65 cents. So there is a huge discrepancy. So this would create the opportunity for the volunteer mileage to be valued at the same rate as and would adjust at the standard business rate. So the Volunteer Driver Tax Appreciation Act is one of the components of the Nonprofit Mileage Act. And then finally, the Nonprofit Seat Act, which is a cutesy name for stakeholders engaging and advancing together. And there are a couple of components to this, but the big picture is that it establishes a council through the White House and an advisory board to give nonprofits a better voice at the table and to support nonprofit policy and promote volunteerism. So it also creates a commission to promote enforcement of protections in the OMB uniform guidance as it relates to and promotes volunteerism and some of the business practices of nonprofits. So if you think about the SEAT Act, the Nonprofit Mileage Act, if we had that advisory commission, we wouldn't still be reimbursing volunteers at the rate of 14 cents a mile. So that would have been caught by this advisory commission. The other important component to the SEAT Act is that it does request that data on nonprofit workforce be compiled annually rather than every 5 years. Currently, the U.S. Department of Labor is only compiling workforce data for the nonprofit sector every 5 years. And if you can imagine where you were 5 years ago, I'm sure things look much, much different. The world changes quickly. So we really, in order to respond to the needs of our community, we really need that data on a more consistent basis. So we are advocating for these things, and it's important to note that our federal delegation is very much bought into this work. And they've been a huge supporter of the nonprofit sector here in Delaware. And in fact, I would be remiss if I did not mention that Senator Coons is a leader on the Charitable Act, and he is advocating strongly for the other two issues. So we have a wonderful federal delegation. So when you see them out in the community, please thank them for their commitment to the Delaware nonprofit sector.
Thank you, Melissa. Before we move on, just wanted to take a moment to see if anyone has any questions, either about our finances, about our impact, or our public policy activities this year. Okay, well then I'm going to move on to saying,
I don't have a question, Sheila. I'm
Sure.
sorry. But I wanted to say that Melissa was outstanding this session. She spent a lot of time in Leg Hall. She did a wonderful job representing Dana, representing members, nonprofits. She was really a wealth of information and shared herself with the Delaware Racial Justice Collaborative. Just really can't say enough good things about the strong work that she did in an environment that can be very challenging. She holds lots of relationships and extended access to people to us. And it's really been a pleasure working with her and supporting Dana. Thank you so much, Melissa, and to you, Sheila, for the work around public policy and advocacy.
Well, thank
Raina,
you.
thank you
Raina.
so much. And I do want to just note that this work doesn't happen in a bubble. And I want to acknowledge that JL Haynes is like an incredible asset to the team. And she is really like the boots on the ground in Legislative Hall. And much of our success this year is due to her diligence. So thank you all. And thank you to everyone on this call, because you all play a role. When I send you irritating emails asking you to call your legislator, send a letter, drop an email, everybody is willing to do that. And it really does take this village to move these policies forward. So thank you.
And I echo what Melissa says. You know, we are, our public policy is shaped by the voices that of our membership. And so as you see opportunities, areas that you think would be important for us to have a lens on, please let us know. You know, JL in her recent blog put out a list of all of the different types of legislation that we were watching this year, not just the money bills, but many, you know, many legislation that could impact nonprofits either positively or negatively. We watch them so we can understand what is before us. So thank you all for that work. But, you know, that's also in the past. So part of what we have to do is say, okay, well, what are you going to do for us now? Right. So we want to talk a little bit about the future. This is my favorite part of our member meeting, is to talk about what can be possible. And I always like to start with our theory of change. You know, when we think about what our impact is and what our vision is as an organization, I mean, ultimately, we hope that when we're done, if ever we're done, that the Delaware nonprofit sector is empowered to achieve an inclusive, thriving, and vibrant community. However you describe the community that you serve, it can be a very small local community or could be the entire state. But our job is to try to create those conditions so that your organizations can be as impactful as possible. And we have 3 different ways that we do that. I talk often about levers. I couldn't find a lever graphic, so we have gears. But these 3 gears work together, and it's really by helping to support the leadership of nonprofits, helping to provide resources so that nonprofits can be resilient and to be stronger. And then ultimately, as an example of the public policy initiatives that Melissa shared, is really to help advance the sector overall. And just to kind of go a little deeper, when we think about, well, what do you mean by that? We do identify outcomes that we believe serve as indicators that we're making progress towards our vision. And it's why in the member survey, we ask you questions about, like, do you have a strategic plan? Are you conducting evaluations of your board executive, your board and your executive? Those are ways for us to kind of see how progress is being made in the areas that we are trying to help create positive conditions. And then, you know, we also, though, want to make sure that the sector is recognized, is seen as valued, is sitting at the table, as Melissa said, not just at the federal level, but at the local level. And one thing that, one of the strategies that Melissa and her team have been working on this year is how can we place more nonprofit leaders onto some of the commissions and boards that the government sets up that helps shape policy. And so if you get that call, it's part of that ongoing strategy to infiltrate and to be a very strong voice in policies that matter. When it comes to our operating strategies, as many of you know, we because our membership is very diverse, some of our members are engaged with us because of our public policy, but many of our members are also taking advantage of our training and consulting services. And so, you know, we use both of these strategies in order to help bring to reality our desired outcomes. And we have a variety of different programs and services that we provide that I list here. And as we look at the landscape, as we look at how it's changing, we also ask ourselves, well, what could we be doing differently or better? And how do we help support perhaps segments of the nonprofit sector that cannot access us in certain ways or may have different needs? And that's really getting into some of the opportunities that we are looking for over the next couple of years. And I say the next couple of years because some of these initiatives will take some time to implement. Some of them we're planning to implement over a period of a couple of years. But, you know, as you know, for those of you who have to raise funds, we need to have our plans in place before we can raise the funding to do that. But I am pleased to say that some of these initiatives are already, we have committed funding or funding is pending to support these. And the first is we mentioned earlier that our Board Connections program, which helps to connect individuals interested in board service with nonprofit boards, we are looking to expand that statewide. And in fact, Daniel Davis, who many of you know, has been our engagement manager. He's recently been promoted, and he'll be working on helping to bring this, roll this out to our members. And we're looking at a late fall of 2023 to make that a reality. And then going into the new year, we have been working on an orientation program for new executive directors. There are a lot of them. And we recognize that if you're never been an executive director or you've been one, but you come to Delaware, there's always some unique things to consider. And we thought that we can be helpful in providing that type of resource. So stay tuned for those two opportunities that are coming forward. We also, though, have some initiatives that we are rolling out again in this fall and then into next year to help organizations with their capacity. And one is our Nonprofit Accelerator program, which I'm going to actually spend a little bit more time to talk about that in a minute, as well as a professional volunteer initiative. You may recall that during the pandemic, we were providing some technical assistance, helping organizations to access funding opportunities for COVID. And a lot of that was around helping them with their financials, especially smaller organizations. And so we are looking to expand that concept into something that's on a more available on a more ongoing basis, tapping some of the wonderful expertise that exists across the state in the areas of finance and some other disciplines. And then when it comes to advancing the sector, we're looking at two strategies. Melissa already touched upon the Association Health Plan. That will be contingent. The rollout of that will be contingent on, as Melissa said, the state funding and then the regulations that we need to roll out. And then, of course, members, as they transition their plans, we recognize that's going to take some time. We also recognize that Dana has kind of a cap on what we can do when it comes to influencing our policymakers, particularly when it comes to lobbying. And so the board has approved for Dana to stand up an affiliated entity as kind of one more opportunity for us to have in our toolbox from a public policy standpoint if we need to increase our lobbying efforts at a higher level. So that's, we're in the middle of the formation work on that. So stay tuned, there'll be more information coming out. But I wanted to highlight this kind of at a simple level that we are continuing to evolve and identify ways that we can continue to support the Delaware nonprofit sector, but and most importantly, our members, because it's our members that we're here for, and we want you to continue to see the value that we bring. So I mentioned the Nonprofit Accelerator, and we're really excited about this initiative. You might have heard that at the end of 2022, I think it might have been December 30th, it felt like the very end of the year, the federal government passed their budget, and included in that was a federal earmark for the Dana Accelerator. So we are very grateful to our federal delegation who helped champion this. So they are providing the funding for us to pilot this 3-year initiative designed really to help support agencies that have been doing great work, but are kind of stuck in this cycle where you need more capacity to grow your capacity, but you don't have the ability to get the capacity to do that, right? So we believe that we have a solution for that, and I want to briefly take you through it. The first thing, just to let you know, is what this is. It's a 3-year program for existing small organizations that serve marginalized communities. And we talk about marginalized communities, we're talking about communities or populations that are often facing discrimination or have lack of access to resources that other populations do. It's designed to provide the services that Dana offers, but on an ongoing basis. So kind of plugging in when they need to tap our consulting, coaching, connecting, and consulting services. So it's almost like on demand, because we would design, the program is designed to meet each organization's needs. And it's looking at across the board. So it's not just a program for executives. It's not just a strategic plan initiative. It's really saying, let's help support the organization at the leadership level and at the organizational level so that we can ensure there's that long-term sustainability coming out of the program. And we did design this in a cohort model. So there's opportunities for participating nonprofits to be together for a period of time to learn from each other, to gain insights. So we're really excited about the program that we've put together. Ultimately, what we want to see is that organizations that go through this program strengthen their leadership, which is both the board and the executive. They have put in place processes so that they can have those well-run organizations, but are using perhaps more contemporary methods to be as efficient as possible. And more importantly, that they have been able to see growth in the impact that they wish to see within the communities that they serve. We had an advisory council comprised of smaller nonprofits, as well as representation from the funding community and professional services firms, and really thought about how do we design this in a way that really ensures that we're creating a program that can meet a specific need. And so we did create some criteria around this. So unfortunately, not every member of Dana will be eligible at any one time, but we did try to also keep it broad enough that it creates ample opportunity. One thing you'll notice is that these are for existing organizations. So that means having been in operation for 3 years or more, and also, robust enough that you have an executive director on staff, because we definitely want to make sure during the program that there's a point of contact throughout. The components of the accelerator include a variety of different elements, from organizational assessments to understand where the organization is throughout the 3 years, but also some cohort-based learning, access to our workshops, access to executive coaches, and then a set of hours that can be applied towards whatever's needed in technical assistance or organizational support. We also have a program navigator. So there'll be a point person that the group, the cohort can connect with, and that's Jennifer Cooper, who joined us just 2 months ago. She's serving as the navigator and the leader of the Accelerator Initiative. And then within this, we also are providing some peer-to-peer connections with executives only. So we really tried to create an opportunity to holistically support the executive, the board, and the nonprofit. Now you'll notice that I did not put any specific dates here, and that is because, as I mentioned, this program is funded, this initial part of the program is funded by the earmark, and we are waiting any day for the final letter to proceed. So rather than making a commitment, we are very cautious and want to make sure that we have the letter in hand that says the money's coming, though I think have jumped through every possible request that they've had to ensure that we have the funding coming. So it's not a matter of if it comes, it's really about when. But we are optimistic that in the next week or two, you will start to hear information about when the application opens. And of course, we're also going to provide information sessions to help those of you who are interested to learn more. In the meantime, if you do want to learn more about the program, you're welcome to contact any of us if you have questions. So with that, I think we're to Q&A to see if anyone here has questions. This is your chance to ask the board, right? Not to put any of them on the spot, but ask the board or the staff questions that you might have, ideas, Would love to just gain your perspective. Going once. Going twice. I'm gonna sneeze. All right, well then I think, Madam Chair, I'm going to turn this annual meeting back over to you. And you can take it from there.
Well, first of all, I am incredibly privileged to work with such an amazing board. And I have the privilege of working with many of the Dana staff, to include Melissa. And I have to tell you, and JL, but Melissa is absolutely extraordinary, as are many of the folks on the team. But I have to tell you, when I, as a nonprofit executive, think about all of the many things that this particular thoughtful group, in the words of Margaret Mead, this thoughtful group of citizens who are changing the nonprofit sector throughout Delaware. I mean, literally, from Sheila to Melissa and others, our wonderful board of the members who support, and the voices. And that's one of the things that I want to hone in on. Members, please continue to lift your voices with those things that are absolutely needed. Your boots on the ground, you're connecting with the folks that we serve every day. And so this is what it's all about. And so I commend each and every one of you. And I can't say enough about how humbled I am to be a part of changing the landscape. It is just awesome. So thank you, everyone. I'm wondering if anybody in my little soliloquy have any questions at this point. Gave you a chance to digest. And if you have any questions at all, we'll do the same thing, going once and twice. Anybody? Okay. All right, then. I'm going to ask that I get a motion to adjourn the meeting. Okay, I have a motion from Doris. May I have a second?
Second, Faye.
Thank you, Guillermina. All those in favor, please signify by stating aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate it so much. And everybody have a great rest of your day and have an awesome week.
Thank you, everybody.
You too.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.